Does this show that there is division within Team Canada, that the premiers don't trust you to negotiate?
I think there is...
News has broke that Mark Carney has kissed the ring of Donald Trump yet again and apologized for the recent Ronald Reagan ad that upset the President of the United States enough to terminate trade talks yet again for the second time. This comes just days after Doug Ford told reporters that Carney and his chief of staff saw the ad before it went out and implied that they were completely okay with it. Who's telling the truth? Let's take a look.
What did you talk about with Prime Minister Carney? Are you and Canada going to resume negotiations?
No, but I have a very good relationship. I like him a lot. But you know what they did was wrong. He was very nice. He apologized for what they did with the commercial. Because it was a false commercial. You know, it was the exact opposite. Ronald Reagan loved tariffs. And they tried to make it look the other way. And he did apologize, and I appreciated it. We had a great dinner, you know, with other countries, as you know. And I think we have a very good relationship personally. I think that what they did was wrong, but he apologized.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's that standing up to Donald Trump. Now, the issue with this is that sometimes when Donald Trump says something, people don't necessarily believe it, or maybe it's misconstrued, or maybe Donald Trump isn't exactly truthful about it. So I don't think a lot of people rushed to believe Donald Trump. I don't know if they rushed to disbelieve him, but they wanted to get confirmation. So while this was kind of dropped on everybody as part of this little press scrum on Air Force One, the media then took the opportunity to ask Mark Carney at the next press conference that he held. Here's what happened.
Hi, Prime Minister. Mackenzie Gray with Global News. Did you apologize to Donald Trump about Ontario's anti-tariff ad?
I did. I did apologize to the president. President was offended by the act, or by the ad, rather. And it's not something I would have done, which is to put in place that advertisement, and so I apologize to him. I'm the one who is responsible in my role as Prime Minister for the relationship with the President of the United States, and the federal government is responsible for the foreign relationship with the U.S. government. So things happen. We take the good with the bad, and I apologize to him.
That he viewed the ad with you in advance of it going to air. Since you're the person that's solely responsible for negotiations, did you inform Mr. Ford that this is something that you did not want to go forward with?
Yes.
Judy Train with CTV News. Prime Minister, if I could just ask for your clarification. You said that you told Doug Ford that he shouldn't air the ad. My question then, the fact that Premier Ford went ahead with the ad, the fact that the Premier of BC wants to put out an ad, the fact that the Premier of Manitoba, Wapkanu, supports Doug Ford's ad, does this show that there is division within Team Canada, that the premiers don't trust you to negotiate?
I think there is, well, the individuals can speak for themselves, and you know they're practiced in speaking to themselves, and they will speak for themselves. There are other premiers who have a different view in terms of the utility of those ads, and you can speak to them. I'll repeat what the situation is with those who actually have been talking with the Americans and have been negotiating with the Americans. That we start from this position, which it does bear remembering, that we are in a position where 85% of our trade is tariff-free. We, like every other country in the world, okay? Every other country in the world has issues if they produce any of the following: steel, aluminum, automobiles, pharmaceuticals, forest products, with 232, so-called 232 tariffs in the United States. And so that's what we're having discussions with. Or that's what we were having discussions with with the Americans. That's where we're negotiating. We were making progress. Those talks are suspended. That's the situation at present. And it has a couple of implications. One of the core implications is it absolutely validates the strategy we have had from day one, which is to focus on the things we can control. Yes, negotiate with the United States. Of course, that's important. But building Canada at home, which is what this budget is going to do, with generational investments, the scale of investment that this country has never seen before, that's what this budget is looking to unlock, and to be building new partnerships with countries around the world. And there is no better place to do that than in the fastest growing part of the world that represents 60% of the global economy. We can adjust for the American component of that, but there's everyone else. So if I take it down to a little more than 40% of the global economy, ex the United States. And those are the discussions we're having. And you can see the traction we're getting. Free trade deal with Indonesia, free trade talks now launched with Philippines and Thailand, two of our largest. We already have free trade through something called the CPTPP with a number of those other economies. A turning point in our relationship with China. Progress which we have been making with India. Not part of these meetings, so I didn't meet directly with Prime Minister Modi here. The foreign minister, other ministers have been meeting with India. That's what we're doing to build our strength at home, first and foremost, build these partnerships abroad, reduce our reliance on the United States. It can't happen overnight, but we're moving very fast.
Okay, folks. All right. Now recall that after Ford had his presser the other day, the Prime Minister's office was saying, we are saying no more about the ad, right? Because they were asked the direct question, did you okay this? Did you tell him not to? And the statement that was put out from the Prime Minister's office was, we're not talking about this anymore. Now, I just need to remind everybody what Ford said.
How are relations with the Prime Minister? Are things strained now because of what's happened?
Not at all. He saw the ad before I put it out, so did his chief of staff. They both saw it, and we moved forward on it.
The Prime Minister was explicit today in saying that it was the ad that derailed negotiations which were moving ahead. With that in mind, why don't you feel you owe Ontarians an apology?
For sticking up for Ontarians, well, let's talk about a so-called imminent deal. I've been hearing this for month after month after month, and if there was no mention about auto. It's about steel. The Americans are gouging us on steel, 50% tariff. We're at 25%, but nothing to do with auto. I am focused on, and I love the steel workers. I talk to Ron Bedard, CEO, every second day at Dofasco, supporting him, Algoma, up in Sault Ste. Marie, protecting jobs. But I'm here, my job is to protect jobs here in Ontario. There's no mention whatsoever of auto. I feel like it slipped to the side. I'm going to fight for the auto workers, the steel workers, the manufacturing and life science sector, all these sectors that President Trump wants to annihilate, not just our country, but in particular, he wants to take jobs from Ontario.
Did you talk to the Prime Minister about your approach of leaving the ad on for the World Series and then pulling it today? Was he supportive of that, if so?
No, I'm not going to get into personal conversations that we had. He knew I was running it. I said it very clearly to everyone. I'm going to pause it on Monday, which we have.
Has the Prime Minister asked you to stop being so vocal with your opposition?
No, he's never said stop being vocal. I'm there, part of Team Canada. I think we play a critical role. Ontario, I think all the premiers play a critical role on this trade deal.
So if you listen to Ford, he's trying to imply that Carney saw it, his chief of staff saw it, and either they didn't say anything or they were okay with it. And then he says, listen, we've been told that there's an imminent deal, which he is accurate in saying. Because all Carney has been saying is, well, we're going to get a deal by July 21st. Oh, we're going to get a deal a week after. Well, we're going to get a deal here. And we haven't gotten a deal at all. And now we're in October, folks. October. And at the very end, he was asked directly, has the Prime Minister told you to stop being vocal? And he said no. So if there's anything that Ford has been doing that Carney has thought has been sabotaging these trade talks, then according to Ford, he hasn't been told to stop. And you have Carney saying, oh, well, I told him to stop. I told him to stop. And he's asked this question by Judy Trin of CTV, and it's a good question. What does it say that Ford and Wabcanoe and EB Now and other people are wanting to run these ads and really antagonize Donald Trump, and they seem to be doing it now by your own admission, Mr. Carney, in defiance of what you're telling them to do? Doesn't that mean that there's no trust? Doesn't that mean that they don't actually align with what you want and your approach? And he goes on to talk about anything but, right? Well, I'm not going to talk about that. You can ask them. But I'm just going to say that, repeat this talking point that, we're in a big crisis, but we're not in a big crisis because we have 85% excluded tariffs. And we're moving very fast, but this takes time. He contradicts himself about 3 or 4 times in that answer, folks. And it's important that you heard it to understand the talking points that are actually going on, because you're going to hear this ad nauseum from the media and no doubt from people that are just gobbling this up like a glass of Kool-Aid. So, but the big thing comes down to this. Mark Carney has said repeatedly in the campaign for leadership and for the election that he's the guy to deal with Donald Trump. We will handle Donald Trump. We will stand up to Donald Trump. Well, he's given away the DST tax. He's given away almost every tariff. He's apologized to Donald Trump for something that he didn't do. Now, is he correct in saying, well, I'm responsible for the relationship with the president? Okay, so then why didn't you do something earlier? Why weren't you vocal? Why didn't you come out and say, this is not an ad that I support? Why didn't you do that? Probably because let's say he did tell Ford not to run it. So the reason why he wouldn't have come out and said it is because he lets the ad run, ticks off Donald Trump, and that achieves one aim. A little twist of the knife from Carney and Ford on that. And then afterwards, he gets to say, I'm the adult in the room, everybody. Remember what we said? He gets to play both sides. He gets to point at Ford afterwards and say, oh, that's just a mouthy conservative. Now, he didn't come out and say that, but he tried to make that implication. He's like, well, I'm responsible for this, and, I apologize, and, that's... And he was almost enjoying it, right? He was almost enjoying that little victory to try and, push that at Doug Ford. So, but the whole thing's a contradiction. You either are standing up against Donald Trump, which Carney is not. He's running away from him in the fastest way possible. And in a way, he's almost admitting that. But in another respect, he wants everybody to believe that, we're still elbows up. And I can't, folks. I can't. The contradictions are coming left, right, and center for this. Now, he wants to say, well, we have free trade with the Philippines. We have free trade. That's great, Carney. Signing free trade agreements doesn't do anything. For those that may not know, you can sign a free trade agreement with Greenland. You can sign a free trade agreement with any country on the planet. That doesn't mean trade's going to happen. That's up to the companies that are in Canada. The companies in Canada that we need jobs for, right? And we need to be producing. Not necessarily consuming, we need to be producing. These companies need to be able to do business with these other areas of the world cheaply. Now, you can argue, well, free trade allows them to do that. Yeah, well, that's fine. But if most of their exports are going to the United States, it still may not make any sense to ship those products to other areas of the world. And do those other areas of the world want what we're producing? That's the other question. Our entire trade strategy and our entire economy has been based off of our neighbor is literally across the street. Why would you do anything to the contrary? Especially when we're talking about doing business with countries like India, who has been shown to be interfering, to assassinating people on our soil, if you believe the Canadian government. But no, we don't want to deal with Donald Trump because Orange Man bad, and I need somebody to shake a stick at. I need somebody to contrast the Liberal Party with the Conservative Party. Same thing. We're going to be dealing with China, and we have a video coming out shortly on that. China is it's not a democracy. It is a authoritarian autocracy, is what it is. They have a president, but he's just sitting there. They're a communist regime. But, you know, they interfere with our country more than probably any other. They set up Chinese police stations. They're harassing our citizens. They're threatening our members of parliament. But, you know, let's deal with them instead of our closest ally that actually protects us, which is the United States. All because Mark Carney needs somebody to say, he wants to take us over, and that's a reason why you shouldn't vote Conservative. Well, if you believe the polls, at least Canadians are starting to say, you know what, I don't think I buy that, and maybe Pierre Poilievre was right.